You walk through your pain and you walk through your suffering, but you know that you're not doing it by yourself. Sometimes it feels like you are, and you're just crying out, God, where are you? But He proved Himself to be there with me every step of the way.
Amy, I'm so happy that you are joining and meeting with me today.
Thank you.
I've always watched you from far away, and I'm so glad that I can watch you close up and just get to hear your story. But I know that some of the people that are listening to you, they may not know who you are. So tell us about your ministry leadership platform. What are you doing? And just share your story just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I am the director of the Center for Holy Land Studies over at the Assemblies of God. I take study trips to the lands of the Bible, and we work with curriculum, and I've been doing it for 10 years. For the Assemblies of God. But before that, I lived in Israel for 6 years doing my degree. And before that, I went to college and did biblical studies. And before that, I grew up in a Christian home and went to a Christian high school. And so that's kind of my background. And my degree work is in Second Temple period Judaism. And so it is well-rounded as far as taking people to the lands of the Bible. And that's what I love to do.
That's incredible. My next question was, how did God prepare you for your position right now? But I think you kind of summed it up. You know, every season somehow God equips you for that. But is there anybody in your life or any experiences that uniquely gifted you for the position that you're in right now?
Yeah, I think that there are several. My mother is a huge proponent of church, and she was a missionary, and she has taught me a lot about how to live. And she went to Israel when she was 20 years old, and she came back with a little Jerusalem cross, which is a cross with 4 corners on it that says, "Spread the gospel to the 4 corners of the earth." And I held it from when I was 2 years old on forever. And so that is actually what started it all in me. So I watched my mom also work in the church, and also then my aunt is a pastor as well. And ever since I was little, I wanted to either teach or be a pastor. So now I get to be both. And then I also am an AGWM missionary. And so I get to do that too. So every dream I ever had, God has fulfilled. And so I'm just living that life right now.
Wow, we're so jealous of you. God has blessed it. That is so wonderful.
Yep.
To be able to be a missionary, to be able to be a teacher. You do all of that in Holy Land too. That is incredible. So can you guesstimate how many trips you might have taken so far?
I can't. I wish I could print that out. I'm sure Israel knows with their passport control. But I don't know. I know we've taken over 4,000 people to the lands of the Bible. I'm sure I've done it over 100 times. So
that's so incredible. Yeah. But you probably remember the first time.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about that experience.
So I went over to do master's work, and you would think you'd normally be nervous getting on the airplane and going to a new country you've never been to before, but it was so ordained by the Lord that I had no fear, nothing. Got on the plane, landed at 3 a.m, had some person pick me up at the airport and drive me to my school, and it was, here I am. And I was just so excited to study Jesus in the land that he grew up in.
And this question might be an odd one, but does it ever get old going to Israel? Because you go so many times. At the same time, the Bible and the story in the Bible is so new every time we read it. So how is it like for you? Yeah,
I get asked that question a lot. And I think my response would be that the Bible is living in a way. So I don't think I can ever say that the Bible and the study of the Bible can get old, because God is always bringing something new out or reminding me of something. So I go into every trip and every program. First, I get to watch people experience it, and that is wonderful because it reminds me of the first time that I went. And I get so excited for what they're going to see next. So that's one part of it, but I also try to go in knowing that the Lord can still speak to me there. And it's not just about the participant, but I also am allowed to experience it each time. So no, I do not tire of it, and it is a wonderful time every time I go.
So, as you are leading this national ministry. You're touching many people's lives. You sit at the high platform of leadership, empowering many people, discipling them and teaching them. And yet people may not understand that people in the high authority position are still people. And we go through some trials and pains in our lives. What are some of the things that really happened to you during your leadership time that really rocked your world, but how did you overcome that, and how did you process that journey?
Well, some people know that I am divorced, and now I'm remarried, but I was divorced, and it was a very difficult, lengthy time in my life. There was a lot of pain, and I was divorced while I was in the leadership position for the Assemblies of God. And so what I did in that time, I stepped back after this and along this lengthy process, and God told me, I will fight for you. You just go be still. Because sometimes battles are too big and pain is too strong that you can't handle walking through it on your own. And that is when I think God, and He promised that He would comes in and He steps in and He fights for you and He orchestrates each thing and each movement, because we can't do that on our own. So I know that there is a lot of suffering in people's lives that are masked, and people don't know. Even Assemblies of God ministers or AGWM missionaries or anybody, anywhere. Everybody has their pain and everybody has suffering. It's how you choose to walk through that pain and suffering, I think, that will determine your outcome. God can handle anger and He can handle hard conversations and things like that. But you have to make a decision to trust Him and to take that step back and let Him do the walking for you when you are too weak to do it. And that's what He did for me.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for your transparency. I know there's so many of us that are watching and hearing you. We may be going through the same thing or even worse. So when you're in the rut of that storm, right in the middle of it, sometimes every day is pain, and walking every hour is painful. So how do you lead through that consciously every hour? How do you do that? How did you do it?
Yeah, there are times when leadership is also allowing yourself time to feel and hurt. And I feel like God provides those times in a day for that to happen. And so you know what? During that time, you do it. And you don't try to avoid pain. You don't try to avoid suffering. You walk through your pain and you walk through your suffering, but you know that you're not doing it by yourself. Sometimes it feels like you are, and you're just crying out, God, where are you? But He proved Himself to be there with me every step of the way. And so He was my guide, my defender, my teacher. And yes, there were times, where I was in a ball under my desk, to be really honest with you. But God allowed that for me. But then the next minute I was up and I was having a meeting, and I was given the strength for that time. So He held me so close. I have this little model of God's hands and a baby sitting in it. And I got that a long time ago in Belgium, and I will never let it go, because I feel like that's what God did and what He does when you're in suffering. And He promises He'll walk with you. He doesn't say that you're not going to have it. And then I feel like when you kind of make it through that or survive some of that, He's not going to waste it either. So
that's so true.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for letting us know that even leaders leading so many people at the national level can go through the pains, and we can overcome it by God strengthening us.
I would also say one more thing too. God sends people to hold your arms up. So you need to know that you can depend on one or two people that can just help hold your arms. And it might not be the same person every time. So if it is a lengthy pain and lengthy time of suffering like I had, God sent different people at different times, right at the time that I needed them. Because when you're pain and suffering, you can really suck people dry. And it just is what it is. It's part of the process of suffering, I think. But when you can start to come out of that and then turn yourself and say, oh, how are other people doing? You know, it's at that point you know that you're coming through a lot of healing. So I would just encourage anybody who is walking through that to walk through it. I learned that pain is just pain. I mean, I get it, you know, it is this thing that you hold inside of you, but it's not going to be forever, and you can make it. And I would just say, make wise decisions. Don't jump ahead of God. Let him do it. It might not be solved immediately, but that's okay.
That is so good. What are some of the prayers during that time that you pray to God? You know, like we cry out to God, and God, be there for me, help me. But is there something specific that you pray, maybe time after time, that was your anchor?
Yeah. So it's Exodus 14:14, God fight for me. It was God fight for me. Or it was, God, I need you to care for my children. You love them even more than I do, which is hard to even understand, but he does. And then know that he loves me that much too. And sometimes your prayers are just groans because you can't find words. That happens a lot in that, and God hears those and understands them better than I do. And that was comforting for me to know that my painful groans were understood by God. So I would say it's different along the way. So it can start as the painful groans. It can start with the promise of God saying, I've got you. And it's whether he says, you go and you do this and you act and you speak, or you know what, I got this one, let me navigate it because it's too big. Or it's just, you know, thank you, Lord, and you find something to be thankful for in each day. So it could be any of those things, and it's all of those things.
Yes, that's right. Even though you went through this long journey of pain, I know that wasn't the end of your story, you know. No. And for people who know you, would have, or maybe don't know you, would have never guessed that you had gone through this fire for this long period of time, because you're such an energetic person, loving people, loving God. Would have never guessed there was a pain as big as this, that you had to handle this and go through this. But that wasn't the end of the story. You said you walked through the fire, you felt the pain, and you still pray through. So what are some of the fruit that you have experienced as a result of your obedience? Yeah,
I never knew that I would be able to relieve that pain in me. I thought it was a forever pain, and I was willing to live with it. But I would say God saved me and allowed me time to heal. And that was a lengthy time too. But oh, what a wonderful thing to work hard every single day, or with a counselor, or whatever it is. But you work hard for healing. I think that's another thing. You don't just expect it to happen immediately. You work hard for it. And I did that. And after I graduated from my counseling with my healing, I, after a while, met Mark Flattery, who is my husband now. That's awesome. And so we've got a blended family, which is interesting, and we both have leadership positions, and we have 6 kids now, and they're all awesome. Cool. But it's not been easy. The marriage part is awesome, but you've got to think that pain is not just yours, it's your kids' pain. But I am seeing now, through time and through healing, God working and fighting for my kids too. And bringing even this family being brought together has influenced so positively my kids in different ways. And I just stand amazed at what God has done. Yeah. And then the center is doing so well. It's just like blessings have been poured down, and I just take them in. Not everything is perfect all the time for anybody, but God is so good and so faithful. And he has so redeemed my suffering. And I'm so thankful for that.
So where could people go and see you in person and hear the rest of the story, and maybe go visit the Israel together with you?
I'm at the offices in Springfield, Missouri, so anyone can come and visit me there. I'd be happy to speak to anybody on the phone or email or however. I'll even come to them I speak sometimes around. They can look or ask when that is, but they want to come with me on a trip to Israel. I guide several a year. I guide specifically a women's trip. It's every other year. It's full this coming March, but I think we might move it to every year, and it's an awesome trip for women and women ministers. Otherwise, there's others throughout the year, and they can just go to our website, which is holylandsstudies.org, or they can call our office, and I'd be so happy to talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah,
So-
I know that you're gonna do that. I
Yes,
know you are
I will.
always making yourself available,
Yeah.
and even not related to ministry, I know you love people so much.
I do.
That is so wonderful.
I know, and I really do.
That's good.
Like, I'm not just saying it, I just do.
That's a great
People
thing.
are, they're so valuable. So,
And so are you.
oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I love you.
Love you
I appreciate
too.
all the ministry you're doing.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
you too.